The night the twin Alpha Kings bowed, it wasn't to an enemy. It wasn't to a rival. It was to a bleeding Omega no one had ever noticed. She wasn't supposed to survive the ceremony. She wasn't supposed to bleed silver. And she was never supposed to make an Alpha kneel. But when she whispered, "It hurts. Something's inside me." Every hierarchy that had ruled the North for centuries began to crack. And before this night ends, the pack will learn a truth they buried in blood. Welcome back to Moonshadow Tales. If you're new here, you've just stepped into a world where power isn't always worn by the strongest wolf. Subscribe now, because this story only gets darker from here. Now let's begin. The Winter Solstice was never quiet. Torches lined the stone courtyard of the High Territory fortress, their flames snapping against the icy wind. Warriors stood in polished armor. Nobles filled the marble terraces. Music pulsed low and ceremonial, drums echoing like a distant heartbeat. At the center stood the crescent platform, reserved only for rulers, reserved for the twin Alpha Kings. Kaelith was nowhere near that platform. She moved along the edges of the courtyard with her head lowered, silver tray balanced carefully in her hands. Wine goblets trembled faintly as the cold seeped through her thin servant's dress. No one looked at her twice. That was survival. In a territory ruled by two undefeated Alpha Kings, invisibility was protection. Until the gates opened. The drums stopped first. Then the wind shifted. You don't hear powerful alphas arrive. You feel it. A pressure, subtle but crushing, rolled across the courtyard like a physical weight. Conversations faltered, spines straightened, wolves inside every body stirred instinctively. The twin Alpha Kings entered side by side, identical height, identical dominance. But not identical presence. One moved like controlled wildfire, restrained, calculating. The other carried the stillness of a coming storm. Together they were balance. Together they were untouchable. Kaelith felt the shift before she saw them. A strange tightness coiled low in her abdomen. She froze mid-step. The tray rattled. Breathe, she told herself. But the pressure intensified. Not outside, inside. The kings ascended the crescent platform. The moment their boots touched the carved stone, pain detonated. Not sharp, not sudden, it was invasive, like something waking beneath her ribs. Kaelith staggered. A goblet slipped from her tray and shattered across the marble. Heads turned, her knees buckled. The pain spread upward, through her lungs, into her throat. It felt like heat and ice twisting together inside her veins. No, not heat. Movement. It hurts, she whispered to no one. Her hands clutched at her chest. Across the courtyard, several warriors scowled. An Omega disrupting the solstice ceremony was humiliation enough. But then she said it. Something's inside me. Her voice cracked, and she collapsed. The courtyard went silent. Not gradual silence. Total. Her body struck the stone. The impact forced air from her lungs. Pain convulsed through her spine as if something were trying to break free from within. A thin line of blood slipped from the corner of her mouth. It hit the white marble and shimmered. The nearest warrior recoiled instantly. That's not red. The torchlight caught it fully now. Not crimson, not dark. Metallic. Liquid silver. A murmur spread like wildfire. Silver was death to wolves. Silver burned, silver poisoned, silver destroyed alpha blood. Yet she was alive, still breathing, still convulsing. The scent reached the platform. Both kings stiffened. The wildfire one inhaled sharply. The storm one narrowed his eyes. That scent. It wasn't poison. It was older. Clear the courtyard, one of the kings commanded. No one argued. Warriors dragged nobles back. Servants scattered. The ceremonial music never resumed. Kaelith barely registered movement. The pain peaked again, deeper this time, and for a split second, her vision flared white. She felt it. Something inside her stretching, awakening. A heavy presence stopped beside her. Boots on marble. Close. Too close. The Wildfire King crouched beside her. The pack gasped collectively. An Alpha King does not kneel for a servant. He ignored them. His fingers brushed the silver pooling beneath her. The entire courtyard waited for the burn. It never came. Instead, his breath caught, not from pain, from impact. His wolf surged violently inside his chest, not in rejection, in recognition. Submission licked through his instincts. Impossible. His jaw tightened. Across the platform, the second king felt it too. The same pull, the same ancient thread tightening around something neither of them could see. Kaelith's body glowed faintly beneath her skin. Just for a heartbeat. But long enough. The Storm King stepped forward now. And, for the first time in recorded territory history, both Alpha Kings stood over a bleeding Omega whose blood could have killed them. Yet neither stepped away. A senior elder pushed through the warriors, horror written across his aged face. "Your Majesties," he rasped, "that blood must be cleansed immediately. Silver is forbidden. She cannot be allowed." The Wildfire King rose slowly. His eyes did not leave Kaelith. "Forbidden," he repeated quietly. The Storm King's gaze swept across the courtyard, assessing fear, whispers, instability. Kaelith's fingers twitched. Her lips parted weakly. The glow beneath her skin pulsed again. The Wildfire King felt his wolf lower its head inside him, not in defeat, in deference. His voice dropped, cold, final. "Who?" he asked, staring at the elder now. "Let her bleed here." The question was not about negligence. It was accusation. And every wolf present felt it. Because if silver blood lived, then something long buried had just returned. And it had chosen to awaken tonight. The courtyard did not breathe. Torches hissed in the wind. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied nervously. Wolves inside, hardened warriors shifted uneasily beneath skin. Kaelith lay motionless on the marble. But the silver blood did not stop spreading. It traced delicate veins across the white stone, branching outward like frost patterns forming on glass. Beautiful. Wrong. The elder's voice trembled as he took a cautious step backward. "Your Majesties, this is not simply forbidden. It is recorded extinction. Silver blood was eradicated during the purge of..." Enough. The Storm King's voice did not rise. It didn't need to. The word fell like a blade. Silence obeyed. His gaze lowered to Kaelith. Not with disgust, not with fear, with calculation. The scent had changed. At first, it had been metallic, sharp, cold. Now it carried something else beneath it. Moonlight, ancient forest, power, not poison, recognition. Across the courtyard, several lower-ranked wolves dropped to one knee without understanding why. Their instincts misfired, confused by signals older than their training. The Wildfire King noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed. "This scent," he murmured, almost to himself. "It commands." The elder's head snapped up in horror. "No, Your Majesty." "That is impossible. No blood commands alpha lineage." The Wildfire King slowly turned his head. "You're certain?" The question wasn't curiosity. It was a warning. Before the elder could respond, Kaelith's body jerked violently. A sharp inhale tore through her lungs as if she had been drowning beneath invisible water. Her back arched. The silver beneath her skin brightened. Warriors stepped back. Several reached for weapons. The Storm King moved first. He dropped to one knee beside her, controlled, deliberate. Not a collapse, a choice. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. 2 kneeling Alpha Kings in one night? Unthinkable. He pressed 2 fingers lightly against her throat. Her pulse raced beneath his touch. The moment contact was made, the scent intensified, not outward, toward him, like it was drawn, like it recognized something. His jaw tightened. Inside him. His wolf did something it had never done. It did not snarl. It did not resist. It lowered its head, not to her body, to the blood. The Wildfire King felt the same shift inside himself. Their wolves, ancient, dominant, undefeated, were reacting to a servant girl's scent with restrained submission. This was not biology. This was law. Older than pack law. Older than alpha rule. The Storm King withdrew his hand slowly. The glow beneath her skin dimmed slightly as though disappointed by the loss of contact. The elder saw it, and panic replaced fear. "Separate them," he whispered hoarsely. Immediately, the Wildfire King rose to full height. No, it was not loud. It was final. "Your Majesty," the elder insisted, voice cracking now, "if silver blood bonds—" "It hasn't," the Storm King cut in calmly. "Not yet." The unspoken words lingered in the air like smoke. A murmur broke out among the nobles. Questions, fear, whispers of witchcraft, of curses, of forgotten prophecies. The Wildfire King turned toward the watching crowd. "Return to your homes." The command rolled across the courtyard with alpha authority. But something unexpected happened. Half the pack hesitated. Not out of defiance, out of uncertainty. Their instincts were tangled, confused. The silver scent was still pulsing faintly. And instinct did not know whether to kneel or flee. The Wildfire King felt it, the slight disruption in dominance. It was subtle. But it was there. That alone was dangerous. He stepped forward, placing himself directly between Kaelith and the pack. The motion was protective. The realization struck him half a second later. Protective? Of her? The Storm King noticed. Their eyes locked briefly. Neither spoke. But both understood the same thing. If the pack sensed weakness in their control tonight, rivals would move by morning. Kaelith stirred again. This time her eyes fluttered open. Silver flickered briefly across her irises before fading back to their natural dark. She looked up, confused, disoriented, and directly into the Storm King's gaze. For a heartbeat, the courtyard disappeared. No nobles, no warriors, no elders, just breath in frozen air. Her lips parted. "You." It wasn't accusation. It wasn't fear. It sounded like recognition. The Storm King felt it again, that ancient thread pulling taut between them. Before he could speak, her body convulsed once more. This time the pain did not force her down. It forced her up. She gasped and clutched at her own chest, as if trying to hold something inside. The silver light beneath her skin surged violently. A pulse exploded outward, invisible. But felt. Every wolf in the courtyard staggered back as if struck by wind. Several dropped to both knees, not from injury, from instinct. The Wildfire King did not move. The Storm King did not move. They stood their ground. But inside, their wolves were kneeling. Not in surrender, in acknowledgement. The pulse faded. Kaelith collapsed forward into the Storm King's chest. The elder did not answer. He didn't need to. The implication was a spark thrown into dry brush. If the pack believed that tonight, authority would fracture. The Storm King adjusted his hold on Kaelith. Her breathing steadied slightly against him. "We move her inside," he said quietly. The Wildfire King nodded once. No debate, no council vote, just decision. Warriors stepped forward instinctively to assist, and stopped, because the silver scent flared again. Warning, clear, do not touch. The Wildfire King's gaze swept across them. "You will not approach her." No one tested it. He turned back toward the fortress doors. As the twin Alpha Kings began walking, carrying the silver-blooded Omega between them, the entire courtyard parted without being told. No one noticed that the snow near where her blood had fallen was not melting. It was crystallizing, as though the ground itself was remembering something. And as the great doors of the fortress closed behind their rulers, one truth settled heavily over the pack. Tonight was not an accident. It was an arrival. And whatever had awakened inside that girl, it had not come alone. The fortress doors sealed shut with a thunderous echo. Inside, the warmth of braziers replaced winter's bite, but the air felt heavier, charged, as if stone walls themselves were listening. The Storm King did not slow as he carried Kaelith through the grand corridor. Servants flattened against pillars. Guards bowed low, confusion flickering in their eyes. And Omega, in the arms of a king. The Wildfire King walked beside them, silent, alert, his gaze scanning every shadowed archway. No one spoke until they reached the inner medical chamber. "Clear it," the Wildfire King ordered. Healers hesitated only a breath before scattering to obey. The Storm King laid Kaelith gently onto the central examination table, carved from obsidian stone. Against the dark surface, her skin looked pale, fragile, wrongly placed in a room built for warriors. Her breathing was shallow but steady. The silver no longer flowed freely from her mouth. It pulsed beneath her skin instead. Visible, faint, alive. The eldest healer approached cautiously, hands trembling despite decades of battlefield experience. "Your Majesties, if her blood is truly silver—" "It is," the Wildfire King said. "Not assumption, certainty." The healer swallowed and reached for a sterilized blade. His movements were slow, reverent, as if approaching sacred flame. He pressed the blade lightly against her palm. A thin cut formed. The blood that welled up shimmered instantly in the torchlight. Silver. Pure. Unmixed. The healer recoiled, breath catching in his throat. "It's not contamination," he whispered. "Not alloyed. Not altered." The Wildfire King's voice was quiet. "Say it clearly." The healer looked between them, dread rising in his expression. "She carries true silver blood." Silence fell hard. The Storm King studied the faint glow threading beneath her veins. It brightened slightly when both kings stood within arm's reach, dimmed when one stepped away, all not dramatic, but measurable. He noticed. So did his brother. The healer stepped back further, shaken. "This bloodline was purged 2 centuries ago," he murmured. "The archives recorded no survivors." "Archives can be altered," the Wildfire King replied coldly. A knock echoed against the chamber doors. Not polite, insistent. The Wildfire King didn't turn. "Enter." The council filed in. 7 elders, cloaked in deep ceremonial grey, faces drawn tight with restrained panic. They stopped the moment they saw the silver pooling faintly in the wound on her palm. One elder whispered something under his breath. Another stepped forward. "This is not a matter for private deliberation," he said, voice strained. "The purge laws are absolute." The Storm King's gaze lifted slowly. "Explain." The elder straightened, drawing authority from ritual if not from strength. Silver blood was designated existential threat to Alpha sovereignty. Its ability to destabilize dominant structures was deemed catastrophic. The law is clear. "Recite it," the Wildfire King said. The elder hesitated. Then, "Any resurgence of silver lineage must be extinguished before maturation." Extinguished. The word lingered, sharp as winter air. Kaelith shifted faintly on the table, unaware, unprotected. The Storm King folded his hands behind his back. "And if maturation has already begun?" The council exchanged glances. The healer spoke before they could. "It has." All eyes turned to him. "The glow beneath her skin is not random. It cycles when both of you are near. Her pulse synchronizes. This is not dormant lineage." He swallowed. "It's awakening." The chamber temperature seemed to drop. An elder stepped forward again, voice harder now. "Then the decision is obvious. Execution prevents full activation." The Wildfire King's expression did not change. "And who carries it out?" No one answered immediately. The implication hung heavy. Which alpha would dare strike a blade against blood that did not burn them? Which alpha would risk finding out what would happen if it did not die quietly? The Storm King moved closer to the table. The glow beneath her skin strengthened slightly, predictable now, observable. He leaned down just enough to study her face. "You burned the texts," he said without looking at the council. Silence. He straightened. "But not all of them." An elder's jaw tightened. "There were fragments," he admitted reluctantly. "References. Prior to the purge, Silverblood were called—" "Say it!" the Wildfire King demanded. The elder's voice lowered. "Moon's first guardians." The words felt older than the stone around them. The healer inhaled sharply. "Guardians. Not traitors, not witches." The Storm King's gaze sharpened. "Guardians of what?" The elder did not respond immediately. And that hesitation spoke volumes. "Of balance," he finally whispered. The Wildfire King let out a quiet breath. Balance implied imbalance. Imbalance implied flaw. Flaw implied fault. In Alpha rule. The council sensed the shift. "This is precisely why the purge occurred," another elder said quickly. "The concept of balance undermines natural hierarchy. If the pack believes—" "The pack," the Storm King interrupted smoothly, "believes what we tell them." His eyes lifted slowly. "Do you question that?" No one answered, but fear lingered in their silence. The Wildfire King stepped closer to the table. Kaelith's eyelids fluttered faintly. The silver glow responded instantly to proximity, not violently, almost relieved. The healer stared. "It stabilizes when both of you are present," he whispered again. Her pulse evens. The luminescence harmonizes. Harmonizes. Another word not meant for weapons. An elder slammed his staff lightly against the floor. "This is precisely the danger. If Silverblood binds to ruling alphas, it can redirect dominance instincts, influence decisions, alter the chain of command. Or correct it," the Storm King said quietly. The chamber fell still. The Wildfire King turned toward the council. "She is not executed tonight." It was not suggestion. It was ruling. An elder stepped forward in protest. "You would risk the entire territory." "I would risk nothing blindly," the Wildfire King replied. "We observe, we test, we learn." "And if she proves destabilizing?" the Storm King answered this time. "Then we decide." The council understood what that meant. They would not be allowed to decide. The Wildfire King gestured toward the doors. "You are dismissed." They hesitated, then bowed stiffly and withdrew. The chamber doors shut. Only the kings and the healer remained. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Wildfire King stepped away from the table. The glow dimmed slightly. The Storm King stepped back as well. It dimmed further. The healer's breath quickened. "Together," he said carefully. The kings moved back into position, one on either side of the table. The glow intensified again, steady, not explosive, measured. The Storm King's voice was low. "This is not coincidence." "No," the Wildfire King agreed. Kaelith exhaled softly. Her body relaxed completely for the first time since the courtyard. The healer backed away slowly. "She should not be alive," he murmured. "All Silverblood should have ended her the moment it awakened." "But it didn't," the Wildfire King replied. The torches flickered. A faint breeze moved through the chamber despite sealed windows. Kaelith's lips parted. Her breathing deepened. Then she spoke, softly, clearly. "You were always meant to kneel." The words were not frantic, not delirious. They carried weight. The Storm King felt it in his spine. The Wildfire King's jaw tightened. Neither reacted outwardly, but inside, something ancient stirred. Not rebellion, recognition. The torches flared brighter for a heartbeat, then settled. The glow beneath her skin pulsed once more, and faded into quiet silver beneath the surface. The Storm King looked at his brother. "She dreams of hierarchy," he said quietly. The Wildfire King's eyes did not leave Kaelith's face, or memory. Outside the chamber the fortress was silent, but the truth had shifted. Silverblood lived. It resonated with alpha power. The council feared it. The pack did not yet understand it. And the girl who should have died tonight had just spoken like something that had ruled before. By dawn, the fortress was no longer quiet. Rumours outrun reason. Before the first bell rang, the courtyard below the throne hall was already full. Warriors in formation, nobles whispering behind fur-lined cloaks, betas stiff with unease. Silver blood had not remained secret. It had multiplied in retelling, witch, weapon, curse, prophecy. The council wasted no time. A public tribunal was demanded, and the twin Alpha Kings allowed it. Not because they were pressured, but because silence breeds rebellion faster than truth. The great throne hall stood vast and cold, carved pillars rising like ancient trees, banners of conquered territories draped high above. At the far end, 2 thrones, equal height, equal power, identical in design. The king stood before them, not seated, waiting. The council lined the lower semicircle floor, staffs planted like a defensive wall of tradition. Then the doors opened. Chains echoed across stone. Kaelith was escorted in by 4 armoured warriors, not dragged, not abused, but restrained. Silver manacles circled her wrists, iron at her ankles, precaution layered over fear. Her dress had been replaced with plain white linen, clean, unadorned. Her dark hair fell loosely around her shoulders, framing a face too calm for someone facing execution. She did not look broken. She looked tired. But beneath her skin, faint silver traced delicate veins along her collarbone. Subtle, almost beautiful in torchlight. A murmur rippled through the hall. She was undeniably striking now. Not exaggerated beauty, but something sharpened, refined. As if moonlight had settled permanently into her features. The chains clinked once more as she was positioned at the centre of the hall, directly beneath the throne dais, below the kings. Symbolism was never accidental here. The eldest council member stepped forward. By the laws enacted during the purge, the resurgence of silver blood is grounds for immediate execution. His voice carried cleanly through the chamber. The threat to Alpha sovereignty cannot be permitted to mature. Kaelith did not react. Her eyes remained lowered. The Wildfire King's jaw tightened slightly. The Storm King's expression was unreadable. The Elder continued. Yesterday's instability in the courtyard confirms activation has begun. Lower ranks experience dominance interference, instinctual confusion. This cannot be ignored. A pause. Your Majesties, for the safety of this territory, so we demand enforcement of law. Silence followed. Not hesitant, heavy. The Wildfire King descended from the dais. Each step echoed, controlled, measured. He stopped several feet from Kaelith, close enough to scent her. The silver aura remained faint, steady. The chains restricted her movement, but she did not shrink back. That alone unsettled several warriors. He circled her once, assessing, observing. His presence intensified deliberately, alpha dominance pressing outward like invisible weight, a tactic perfected over decades of command. It bent lesser wolves without effort. The air thickened. Several betas in the hall lowered their gaze instinctively. The Wildfire King stopped directly in front of her. "Look at me," he commanded. Her chin lifted slowly. Their eyes met. The hall held its breath. He pushed further, letting his alpha authority flood the space between them. A silent test. Dominance was not physical. It was pressure, force, claim. Her breathing shifted, but she did not kneel. Instead, the silver beneath her skin brightened. Not violently, reactively, like a mirror. The Wildfire King felt it immediately. His wolf surged inside his chest, not to attack, to respond. He increased pressure, harder, testing limits. The chains rattled softly as her hands trembled, but her knees did not bend. Then something changed, subtle, internal. His wolf, ancient and undefeated, did not push forward. It hesitated. The Wildfire King stiffened. That had never happened. He pressed harder. The hall began to feel the force now. Warriors winced. A beta stumbled backward under the weight of it. Kaelith inhaled sharply. The silver flared brighter, and the Wildfire King's wolf did something unthinkable. It lowered its head. Inside him, instinct overriding will. His body followed a half-second later. His knee struck the stone. The sound cracked through the hall like thunder. Gasps exploded. A spear clattered to the floor. One of the council members staggered back in horror. An Alpha King, kneeling, before a chained Omega. The Wildfire King's hand braced against the marble as he fought the internal pull. His expression did not show panic, but his breathing had shifted. This was not forced submission. It was instinctive alignment. Kaelith's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't commanded it. She hadn't spoken. The silver glow steadied. The chains did not break. The dominance pressure in the room dissipated instantly, like a storm that had decided not to strike. The Storm King did not move from the dais, but something inside him tightened sharply. He felt the thread snap taut. Not fear, recognition. The council erupted into chaos. This is corruption. It's inversion. She's controlling him. But Kaelith hadn't lifted a finger. The Wildfire King slowly rose to his feet. No embarrassment, no visible anger, only calculation. He had felt it clearly. The pull was not coercion. It was correction. The hall had seen it, and that was dangerous. Very dangerous. The elder's voice trembled. This is precisely why the purge occurred. It subverts alpha dominance. It makes rulers kneel. The Storm King finally descended from the dais. The hall quieted instantly. He stopped beside his brother, their shoulders aligned, identical, immovable. His gaze shifted to Kaelith. The silver pulsed again, faint, expectant. He stepped forward. One step closer than his brother had stood. The air shifted. His wolf stirred. Different temperament, same bloodline. The hall sensed it. Another test. If he resisted, authority might recover. If he did not, the foundation cracked permanently. Kaelith swallowed softly. The chains clinked. The silver beneath her skin shimmered once more. The Storm King felt it then. The same ancient pull. Stronger. Closer. His wolf did not hesitate. It leaned forward. And for the first time in his reign, he felt the edge of his knee wanting to bend. The chamber went silent, because everyone saw it. The second alpha was about to kneel. The Storm King felt it. The precise moment instinct overtook pride. His wolf did not resist the pull. It recognized it. His knee shifted forward a fraction. Then he stopped. Not by force, by awareness. He did not fight the pull. He studied it. The hall waited for the impact, for the humiliation, for the fracture of alpha rule. Instead, he straightened fully. The silver glow beneath Kaelith's skin flickered sharply, confused by interruption. The Storm King's voice cut clean through the chamber. Enough! It was not loud. It did not need to be. The room obeyed. His gaze moved from Kaelith to the council. You witnessed instinct, he said evenly. Saw not submission. The Wildfire King stepped beside him, composed once more. Instinct older than your laws, he added. The elder's face had gone pale. You cannot redefine treason as instinct. The Storm King's eyes hardened. Watch me. A ripple of tension ran through the hall. Kaelith swayed slightly on her feet. The silver beneath her skin was no longer flaring violently. It pulsed with rhythm, like a second heartbeat, uncontrolled, untrained. The Wildfire King turned toward her, and for the first time his voice softened. What is your name? The entire hall stiffened. Alpha Kings did not ask servants their names. They were given. She swallowed. Kaelith. Her voice carried clearly. The Storm King studied her face. Kaelith. It settled into him strangely. Familiar. The Wildfire King inclined his head slightly. "I am King Kaelith," the Storm King continued. "And I am King Veric." A subtle shift moved through the hall. Names carried weight. Veric's gaze returned to Kaelith, and the silver glow responded. Not violently. Warmer. She felt it too. The pull was no longer purely painful. There was something else woven into it now. Recognition. The council stepped forward again, urgency rising. "Majesties, sentiment will not alter law. Silver blood carries the mark. If the prophecy is true," Kaelian's eyes narrowed. "Prophecy," the elder hesitated, then exhaled. There were fragments not destroyed, references to the silver mark, a sigil carried only by the moon's first guardians. Veric's voice dropped. "Describe it." The elder's gaze moved toward Kaelith's back. "If she bears it, it will reveal itself under alpha resonance." The Wildfire King looked at the chains. "Remove them." The warriors hesitated. Veric's tone turned glacial. "Now." The chains were unlocked swiftly. Kaelith's wrists were red from restraint. She did not rub them. She simply stood. Kaelian stepped closer. Not aggressively. Deliberately. Veric mirrored him on the opposite side. The silver glow strengthened between them. A faint breeze moved through the chamber, though no doors were open. Kaelith's breath hitched. Her back arched suddenly, not in pain this time, in response. The linen fabric at her shoulders darkened, then tore slightly along the spine. Gasps filled the hall. A crescent-shaped sigil emerged at the center of her back. Not ink, not scar. Light. Pure silver light forming a perfect crescent moon. Intricate lines radiated outward like branches of an unseen constellation. It was beautiful, terrifying, ancient. The elder stumbled back. "The mark," he whispered. "It's real." Kaelith's hands trembled as she twisted slightly, trying to see what they were staring at. "What is it?" she asked quietly. No one answered immediately, because awe had replaced argument. Veric stepped closer, close enough that his warmth brushed her bare shoulder. The sigil brightened at his proximity, then brighter still as Kaelian stepped in on her other side, balanced, symmetrical. The crescent glowed steadily between them. Kaelian spoke without looking at the council. "Explain it," the elder's voice shook. The moon's first guardians were said to maintain equilibrium between dominance and instinct. Their bloodline could temper alpha aggression, redirect it, anchor it. "Command it?" Kaelian asked. The elder hesitated. "Yes." The word echoed. Kaelith shook her head faintly. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I was born in the lower quarters. My parents were labourers. There's nothing ancient about me." Veric's gaze softened, just slightly. "Do you remember your mother?" She went still. "My mother died when I was young. And your father. Before her." The hall felt smaller suddenly, more intimate. Kaelian stepped forward, gently turning her so he could see the sigil clearly. He did not touch her skin, but his hand hovered close. The mark pulsed in response. "You were not told the truth," he said quietly. Her throat tightened. Why would they hide something like this? No one answered. Because hiding silver blood would have meant survival, or betrayal. Kaelith's eyes shimmered faintly with unshed tears. "I never felt powerful," she admitted softly. "I always felt wrong, like something inside me didn't fit." The silver responded to her emotion. Not violently, but protectively. The temperature in the hall shifted. Several warriors straightened unconsciously. Veric felt it again, the internal alignment, not submission, but harmony. He stepped closer instinctively. The sigil flared. The pressure in the hall changed direction. It was no longer pushing outward. It was pulling inward, toward center, toward her. Kaelith inhaled sharply. The feeling was overwhelming, not painful this time, magnetic, unintentional. Several lower-ranked wolves in the chamber bent their heads without realizing. Not to the kings, to her. Kaelian saw it. So did Varric. Control was slipping from ritual into instinct. Kaelith gasped. "I'm not doing this," she said, panic creeping into her voice. Varric's voice dropped, steady and grounding. "I know." He stepped directly in front of her now, close enough that their breaths mingled. The sigil burned brighter. His wolf surged forward, not aggressively, protectively. Kaelian stepped behind her. The crescent locked into perfect luminosity, balanced between them. Varric's voice lowered further. "Breathe." She obeyed without realizing. Slow inhale, slow exhale. The glow steadied. The wolves in the hall lifted their heads again. The pressure normalized. Silence settled. Kaelian's voice cut through it. "She is untrained." The elder nodded faintly. "Which makes her more dangerous." "No," Varric corrected calmly. "It makes her vulnerable." Kaelith swallowed hard. "I don't want to command anyone," she whispered. "I don't even know how." Kaelian's gaze softened, barely perceptible. "Then you won't." A flicker of something passed between the twin kings. Not strategy, not dominance. Decision. Varric turned to the council. "She lives." The words were final. "She trains," Kaelian added, "and she does so under our protection." The elder's face tightened. "This will not remain contained. If rival territories learn—" A sudden disturbance interrupted him. The great hall doors creaked open slightly. A guard rushed in, breathless, dropping to one knee. "Majesties," he said urgently. "A border patrol intercepted movement in the northern forest at dawn." Kaelian's eyes sharpened. "Clarify." "3 cloaked figures. Not ours. They fled when approached." Varric's gaze darkened. "Spies," the guard continued. "They were positioned above the outer courtyard last night." The hall fell cold. They had watched the awakening, watched the kneeling, watched the silver. Kaelith's heart skipped. The sigil pulsed faintly again. Not fear. Warning. Kaelian's voice turned lethal. "Seal the borders." Varric's gaze moved back to Kaelith. The bond pulsed stronger now. Not just instinct. Connection. "This changes everything," the elder whispered. Kaelian's jaw tightened. "No," he corrected. "It confirms it." Beyond the fortress walls, beyond the frozen trees of the northern ridge, 3 riders urged their horses harder through the snow, carrying news, silver blood lives, and the twin Alpha Kings knelt. The message did not take long to travel. By nightfall, the fortress felt different, not quieter, sharper. Torches burned lower along the outer battlements. Patrol rotations doubled. The gates were barred with reinforced ironwood beams. Inside the eastern tower chamber, Kaelith stood alone at the narrow window. Snow fell in a steady curtain beyond the glass. Her back tingled. Not painfully. Aware. She pressed her palm against the cool stone wall and closed her eyes. Everything had changed in a single day. She had been a servant at dawn. By dusk, she was a prophecy, a weapon, a liability. A girl who didn't know who her parents truly were. A soft knock broke the silence. She turned. King Varric stepped inside first, composed and silent as winter. Behind him came King Kaelion, firelight catching the bronze tones in his hair. They did not bring guards. That detail did not go unnoticed. "The Northern Border Patrol found tracks," Varric said without preamble. "They vanished at the ravine." Kaelion crossed his arms. "Which means they didn't run." "They hid," Kaelith said quietly. Both kings looked at her. She didn't know how she knew, but the silver under her skin pulsed faintly in agreement. Varric studied her carefully. "You feel something." She nodded slowly. "Not fear. Pressure." Kaelion's gaze sharpened. "From where?" She turned back toward the window, closer than the border. The torches along the courtyard flickered violently. All 3 of them felt it at the same time. Wrong. Varric moved first. The door burst open before he reached it. A body slammed into the chamber, one of the corridor guards, throat slit, eyes wide. Kaelian's wolf surged to the surface instantly. "Down!" he barked. The torches extinguished. Darkness swallowed the room. 3 figures materialized from the shadowed corridor. Cloaked, silent, no scent. That was the first thing Varric registered. Nothing. No musk of foreign pack, no trace of metal oil, no breath. It was like fighting smoke. One assassin moved for Kaelith, too fast. Kaelian intercepted, claws tearing through cloak, but the blade slid under his ribs before he could shift fully. Steel met flesh. Varric's vision went red. He lunged for the attacker, but another blade flashed toward his throat. Kaelith screamed, and the world went silver. Light exploded from her back, not outward, inward first. It poured through her veins like liquid lightning. Then it surged. A dome of silver radiance erupted from her body, expanding in a violent arc. The assassins hit it like a wall. The blade buried in Kaelian's side stopped mid-penetration as the silver shield solidified between flesh and steel. Varric staggered back as the barrier enveloped them. The room glowed as if bathed in moonfire. The assassins recoiled, not burned, repelled. One tried again, lunging straight through the light. The silver flared brighter. The attacker's cloak shredded as if dissolved from within, revealing blackened armor etched with unfamiliar sigils. Not pack markings. Something older. Varric didn't hesitate. He shifted fully. Bone cracked. Muscle tore. The great storm wolf burst forward with lethal precision. But even as he struck, the assassin twisted unnaturally, avoiding fatal impact. Immune to scent. Trained against instinct. Designed for this. Kaelian was on one knee. A blood seeping between his fingers. The blade hadn't pierced deep. The silver had stopped it. But it had cut. Kaelith saw the blood, and something inside her snapped. Not rage. Claim. The silver didn't expand outward this time. It focused. Her hand moved without thought, pressing against Kaelian's wound. The sigil on her back blazed white-hot. Varric felt the surge instantly. The air compressed. The assassin nearest Kaelith froze mid-strike. Not physically restrained, overridden. Its body trembled, as if something far stronger than command had seized it. Kaelith's eyes glowed fully silver now. "You will not touch him," she said. The words were not loud. They were law. The assassin collapsed, unconscious before hitting the stone floor. The remaining 2 retreated immediately, not in fear, in calculation. They vanished into the corridor as abruptly as they'd appeared. The silver dome flickered, then dimmed. Varric shifted back to human form, chest heaving. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, catching Kaelith as her knees buckled. The light still shimmered faintly beneath her skin. Kaelian gripped her wrist gently. The wound along his side was closing, not fully healed, but sealing. His eyes lifted to hers. "You stopped it," he murmured. She stared at her hands. "I didn't know how." Varric's voice was low, unshaken despite his control. "They had no scent," Kaelian nodded grimly. "Alchemically masked. Or blood-bound." Varric's gaze hardened. "Which means this was not a rival pack. No, this was organized, ancient, deliberate." Kaelith's breathing slowed gradually, but the silver did not fade completely. It moved differently now, stronger, denser, less chaotic. Varric felt it in his bones. The pull was no longer subtle. It was anchored. Kaelian brushed his fingers lightly against her jaw, checking her focus. The contact changed everything. The sigil flared again. Not explosive. Intimate. The silver flowed from her skin into his for half a heartbeat. Varric felt it too. A current passing through proximity, through connection, through choice. Kaelian inhaled sharply as warmth flooded his chest. The shallow cut along his ribs sealed completely. Gone. All 3 of them froze. That had not happened before. Kaelith looked up slowly. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. Varric stepped closer. "You touched him." Her pulse quickened. Yes. The air thickened again, not with danger, with awareness. The bond had shifted, strengthened. The silver inside her did not feel wild anymore. It felt aligned. Outside, alarm horns finally began to blare across the fortress. Too late. The assassins were gone. Varric moved to the doorway, scanning the dark corridor. No trace, no scent, nothing. He returned to them, eyes storm-dark. They breached the inner tower undetected. Kaelith rose fully now, testing his side. No pain, no blood, only warmth where her hand had rested. His gaze locked with Varric's. Both understood the implication. They hadn't just tried to kill her, they had tried to test her. And she had evolved. Kaelith's voice was quiet. They weren't afraid of wolves. No, Varric said. They were prepared for wolves. Kaelian's jaw tightened. But not for you. Silence settled heavy in the chamber. Then Kaelith exhaled slowly. The silver beneath her skin pulsed once more. Stronger than before, not defensive. Awake. Varric felt it brush his consciousness like a distant tide. It was no longer simply reacting. It was learning. And it had grown more powerful the moment she touched him. Dormant. The word lingered in the air long after it was spoken. Kaelith stood between them, the silver beneath her skin still glowing faintly, not violently now but steadily, like embers that refused to die. Varric felt it first. Not the power. The pull. It threaded through his chest in a way no battle instinct ever had. Not territorial, not competitive. Personal. Kaelith felt it a heartbeat later, a mirrored sensation that made his wolf rise, not in aggression, but in recognition. And that was the problem. Recognition meant claim. Claim meant mate. And mates did not come in shared forms. It was biologically impossible. Alpha wolves did not divide bonds, they dominated them. Yet the resonance in the room did not split. It harmonized. Kaelith swayed slightly as a wave of emotion that wasn't hers washed through her chest. Fear, but not her own. Protectiveness, but doubled. Heat rushed to her face. Why do I feel... She stopped, pressing a hand to her sternum. That's not mine. Both kings stiffened. What do you feel? Kaelith asked carefully. She looked at Varric first. Storm, she whispered. His jaw tightened. Then she turned to Kaelith. And fire. The air shifted. Neither king had spoken their internal states aloud, yet she had felt them. Varric stepped closer instinctively, lowering his voice. You're sensing us. I don't want to, she said softly. It just happens. Kaelith exhaled slowly, forcing calm into his bloodstream. Then don't fight it. Her eyes snapped to his. That's easy for you to say. A flicker of something vulnerable crossed his features. You think this is easy? Silence fell between them, because it wasn't. Varric ran a hand through his dark hair, pacing once before stopping directly in front of her. Dual resonance, he murmured. Kaelith nodded once. Impossible. And yet, Varric replied quietly. The silver beneath Kaelith's skin pulsed brighter at their proximity, not chaotic, drawn. She felt it like gravity, not pulling her down but forward, toward them. Her breath shortened. Their emotions were clearer now. Varric's restraint, iron-willed, controlled, holding back instinct by force. Kaelian's warmth, fierce, protective, dangerously close to possessive. It overwhelmed her. Stop, she whispered, closing her eyes. Both kings immediately retracted their emotional walls, but the connection did not sever. It lingered, threaded, alive. Varric's voice gentled. You're not overwhelmed by power. She opened her eyes slowly. You're overwhelmed by us. The truth of it tightened her throat. Kaelith stepped closer, slow enough that she could retreat if she wished. She didn't. His hand hovered near her shoulder, not touching. The silver responded anyway. It brightened, faint lines tracing from her sigil outward like veins of light. He inhaled sharply. There it is, he murmured. Varric felt it too. The bond wasn't fully formed, but it was forming. Partial, incomplete, yet undeniable. Kaelith's voice trembled slightly. Why does it feel like I've known you before? Neither king answered immediately. Because it felt the same to them, not memory, but inevitability. Varric stepped closer until he stood just inches from her, close enough to feel her warmth. His wolf surged forward with a single, overwhelming instinct. Mark her. The urge slammed into him with such force his hands curled into fists. His gaze dropped briefly to the delicate line of her throat, where a mate mark would seal a bond permanently. Kaelith felt the shift instantly. Heat flared through her veins, her pulse quickened. She didn't understand why her body reacted to his proximity like this. But it did. Varric leaned closer, not touching, not yet. The silver between them intensified, the air vibrated. Kaelian saw it, felt it, and something sharp flickered in his chest. Not jealousy, something more complex. Shared instinct, because he felt it too. The same urge, the same claim. Varric's breath brushed Kaelith's skin. His wolf roared inside him. Do it! Complete it! Claim what is yours! His hand lifted, fingers grazing the side of her neck. The silver exploded brighter, not violently. Warning. Varric froze. Kaelith gasped, the glow surging painfully for a split second before stabilizing. Her eyes widened. It's not ready, she whispered. And somehow she knew that instinctively. If he marked her now, it would fracture something, the balance, the triad resonance. Kaelian stepped forward immediately, placing a steadying hand at the center of her back. The crescent sigil flared brilliantly at his touch. The light did not lash outward this time. It deepened, layered, strengthened. Varric stepped back slowly, breath uneven. Control reclaimed. Barely. I won't, he said hoarsely. Kaelith looked between them. You both feel it. It wasn't a question. Kaelian's jaw flexed. Yes. Varric didn't look away from her. It shouldn't exist. Dual alpha bonds were myth. Dominant structures did not allow shared mates. Yet nothing about this felt fractured. It felt designed. Kaelith's voice softened. I feel safe when you're near. The admission shifted the air completely. Varric's storm quieted. Kaelian's fire steadied. She stepped closer to them both now, not out of instinct, out of choice. Her hands lifted hesitantly, one resting lightly against Varric's chest, the other against Kaelian's. The contact was gentle, tentative. The effect was not. The silver ignited, not a flare, a surge. It flowed from her palms directly into them. Both kings inhaled sharply as warmth flooded through their veins, not overpowering, harmonizing. The resonance locked tighter, clearer, stronger. Kaelith's eyes shimmered silver again. But she wasn't losing control. She was anchoring them. And they were anchoring her. Varric's voice dropped to a whisper. This bond, Kaelian finished quietly, is choosing us. Outside the chamber, the torches reignited along the corridor as if responding to the pulse. Inside, the silver light intensified further, no longer reacting to danger, responding to touch, and it was growing stronger, inevitable. The word did not fade. It settled, or locked into bone. The silver light between them did not dim this time. It stabilized, luminous, alive, expectant. Kaelith's palms were still pressed to their chests. She could feel their heartbeats, two distinct rhythms, and beneath them, alignment. Varric swallowed once, voice rough. If we step back now. It won't disappear, Kaelian finished quietly. No, it would grow unstable. Kaelith felt that truth deep in her blood. The bond was no longer forming. It was waiting to be sealed. Her voice was barely more than breath. What happens if we don't fight it? Neither king answered immediately, because they both knew. In wolf lore there was no partial claiming, no divided resonance. If this was real, it would rewrite everything. Varric stepped closer first this time, not hesitating, not lunging, choosing. His hand slid to the side of her neck again, slower than before. Watching her, giving her time to refuse. She didn't. Her pulse raced, but not from fear, from recognition. Kaelith moved behind her, his hand steady at the small of her back, directly over the crescent sigil. The silver ignited in full, not explosive, complete. Varric's control snapped, but not violently, purposefully. He bent his head and pressed his mouth to the curve of her neck, not biting yet, breathing her in. The contact sent a shockwave of heat through all three of them. Kaelith gasped as emotion flooded her, storm and fire interwoven, not consuming, protecting. Varric's teeth grazed her skin. The bond surged. Kaelian's hand tightened slightly at her back as the sigil blazed beneath his palm. Now, Kaelian murmured. Not a command. A consent. Kaelith turned her head slightly, exposing her throat. Varric marked her. Not savage, not territorial. Precise. The bite was sharp. Then molten warmth followed. Silver exploded from her skin, racing through Varric first, then arcing through the connection into Kaelian. Kaelian inhaled sharply as the resonance slammed into him. The bond did not split. It braided. 3 heartbeats locked into one rhythm. Kaelith cried out softly as the crescent sigil flared brighter than it ever had before. And then something impossible happened. A second flare surged outward from her mark and burned faintly into both kings, not visible like hers, but there, anchored, balanced. Varric pulled back slowly, breath uneven. The mark at her neck shimmered silver before settling into a faint, crescent imprint. Kaelian turned her gently toward him. His forehead rested against hers. "You chose us," he said quietly. Her voice trembled. It felt like coming home. Outside the chamber, the fortress seemed to exhale. The air steadied. The bond was sealed. Not dominance, not possession. Equilibrium. The main hall they entered together. Not hidden, not hesitant. The council was already assembled. Word of the assassination attempt had spread. Tension hung thick across the chamber. The elder stepped forward first. His eyes froze on the faint crescent mark at Kaelith's throat. Shock rippled outward. "You dared!" one councilman hissed. Varric's voice cut through the hall like steel. "We chose." Kaelian stood at Kaelith's other side. "And the bond held." Murmurs erupted. "Impossible. Dual alpha bonds cannot—" "The laws!" "The laws," the elder interrupted sharply, voice trembling, "were written after the purge." Silence fell. Kaelith's silver pulsed faintly in warning. "The purge?" she asked. The elder's shoulders sagged. He looked older suddenly. "You deserve truth," he said quietly. The chamber stilled. Silver blood were never enemies. The words hit like a physical strike. "They were the moon's counterweight," he continued. "When alpha lines grew tyrannical, when dominance became corruption. Silver blood restrained them." Varric's jaw tightened. Restrained how? By resonance. By balancing aggression before it became brutality. By preventing packs from being ruled through fear. Kaelian's voice darkened. "And our predecessors?" The elder's gaze dropped. "They feared losing control." The room felt smaller. "Ancient Alpha Kings orchestrated the massacre," the elder confessed. "They framed Silver Blood as traitors to justify extermination." Kaelith's breath caught. "My parents. Likely descendants," the elder said softly. "Hidden to survive." The council erupted again. "You speak treason. You would dismantle Alpha sovereignty." Kaelith felt their rising hostility like static, but beneath it, she felt something else. Fear, not of her, of losing unchecked power. Varric stepped forward slightly. "She is not here to dethrone us." The elder's eyes met his. "No," he said quietly. "She is here to prevent you from becoming what history already proved you could." The truth settled like ash. Kaelith looked at Kaelith, not with doubt, with clarity. "You are balance," he said. "Not weapon, not threat. Balance." The silver along her spine glowed stronger, not reacting, accepting. And that was when the chamber doors slammed shut. The sound echoed like a war drum. Armed warriors lined the walls, not royal guard, council insignia. The elder's face drained of colour. A councilman stepped forward, voice cold. "For the preservation of Alpha Order," he declared, "the Twin Kings are relieved of authority." Blades unsheathed in unison. Varric's wolf surged instantly. Kaelian's eyes burned. Kaelith's mark flared brilliant silver. The council had staged a coup. And this time, it was not assassins in the dark. It was open rebellion. If you want part 2, if you want the war, if you want to see what this bond becomes, subscribe now. And tell me in the comments, should Kaelith embrace her power fully? Or should the kings unleash theirs first? The story isn't over. It's just waking up.